Breaking news. Government has introduced banning junk food adverts after 9 p.m. in a bid to combat obesity. The official statement is, online adverts for junk foods will not be allowed from next year under new government rules introduced to tackle childhood obesity. The ban, which will also apply to adverts shown on TV before 9 p.m, will begin in October 2025. Foods include soft drinks, savoury snacks, cereals, chocolates and sweets, ice cream, cake, cupcakes, biscuits and bars, pastries, desserts, yogurts, pizzas, potatoes, i.e. chips, and ready meals. Basically everything delicious. I cannot fucking see a thing with them. And this is a video about how this will likely do the square root of shite all in the grand scheme of tackling the obesity epidemic we currently have on our hands. So just for some context, we're going by the meaning that junk food means pre-prepared or packaged foods that have low nutritional value and potentially high in calories, which is what Google came up with, right? So when I mention junk food, I mean it by that explanation. First point, junk food is a subjective term. What I mean by that is what that means to one person means something else to another person. If junk was useless, you wouldn't see people scrounging through rubbish bins at night, would you? Then selling on eBay and making a fortune on junk. It happens, people. Check out on YouTube or TikTok. Some things that people find in the bins are incredible, like games, phones, clothes with tags on them, etc., providing it's legit. And they've not set the bin up for themselves for content. But also, some people require junk foods to hit their calories. Eddie Hall ate 12,000 calories at the peak of his strongman career. And I think Brian Shaw was eating 15,000. They ate half, sometimes a full cheesecake, just to hit the calorie numbers. And Michael Phelps, the swimmer, he eats around 12,000 calories as well. Or he did eat that anyway. Think of all those calories. Do you think all those calories are going to come from healthy foods like chicken, rice and broccoli? I don't think so. Attempt it and see how you get on. The amount of fibre alone would cause absolute havoc with their bowels. Let alone the amount of vitamins they'd ingest from these foods would be far too much and likely cause issues. Now you may be thinking, James, I'm not a fucking strongman or an Olympic swimmer, mate. Completely agree. But they aren't that much different from you. They train and eat for fuel, which everyone should be doing in some form. To bring it a little bit closer to home, at the peak of my calories, I was eating around 6,000 of them. I was walking 30,000 steps a day though, and training. They were not consumed using fruit and veg, I can assure you. Crisps helped a lot, and still do. So, one man's trash is another man's treasure, or one person's trash is another person's treasure. 2024, isn't it? If you have an ounce of intelligence and really think what junk food is, it's just a mix of protein, fats and carbs. All different variations and ratios. Most junk foods are highly palatable, easy to consume, and in quantities you likely want more of. I can eat a packet of crisps in 30 seconds straight and likely want another one. Arguably, there's nothing wrong with them in the small quantities, it's the large quantities that get you. You could have a few Haribo and be fine. You could have a few Pringles and be fine. And you can have that donut and be fine. Would it satisfy you though? Couple that with it usually coming in some sort of share bag or 3 for £1 cost, where you think you're getting a bargain, and maybe you are, but then you eat every single one. So what can you do? Well, you address it. I'd say I'm borderline addicted to crisps. My wife would say I am addicted to crisps, and I more or less have a packet each day, at least. Rather than eradicate them and likely binge on them in a couple of days, I try and lower my consumption of them calorie-wise by eating lentil crisps and the pop chips, so it's less of a hit. There are things I blatantly avoid, like caloric drinks and dense pastries. They're just not worth it in my opinion. See how I've made myself my own rules around food? And maybe you should too. I also know these things aren't bad, they're just not for me. Next point, so calorie labels on your food was introduced in 1994 and calories on restaurant menus were introduced in 2022, if my research is correct. So the information has always been there for you to educate yourself and ultimately decide what is in your foods. The information is also in the traffic light system to indicate the amount of calories that are in them. Now we know from today's drivers, nobody gives a fuck about the traffic lights these days because nobody listens to them. Very few people are choosing their foods based on this. And if they do, it's likely one of their meals, or it's a very short space of time, like a few days. They may choose the 300 calorie healthy lunch, but then that goes to shit when they order a 1500 calorie meal at dinner. The average daily calorie consumption indicator is pretty fucking useless as well, because everybody comes in different shapes and sizes, meaning different calories for each individual. You can't simply go on Google and find out the calories you should be consuming based on your height and your weight. Any nutrition advocate, or any human with half a brain cell, should know that your diet should be mostly single ingredient foods. If you don't consume that, you should be aware of the consequences, which I don't think people are. They're just not understanding the seriousness of it. I really think this just comes down to people thinking their health is fine. Everyone knows they should be eating 5 bits of fruit and veg a day, but they don't. People know smoking is bad for you. Have you seen those photos of black lungs on fag packets? Fucking disgusting. Also the extortionate cost these people are happy to pay. And the big words on the front of the packets, they say smoking gives you cancer, does not put them off. If those 3 things don't put you off smoking, I don't know what will. But again, one cigarette won't affect you, but an accumulation of them over a year, a number of years, will then start to show. If they have a cigarette and survive, they'll think they're fine to have another one. They'll just say, what's the harm? Same goes for food. If someone has a donut and they're breathing after it, They'll continue that way of thinking and calories just keep adding up. It's not until they have a heart attack or something massive happens, like not being able to chase their kid without getting sore, or embarrassed at the pool when their kid wants to play with them. Let's be honest as well, things like that won't even change people's thought process. They'll likely go back to smoking after a heart attack or eating like a fucking rhino after gastric surgery. My wife's a nurse at the hospital. She tells me about pregnant women coming in constantly smoking. It absolutely breaks my heart. If obesity, cardiovascular health and cancer doesn't put people off overeating, nothing else is going to, is it? But if every time you eat a donut, I punch you in the face, I bet you stop doing it because of the severity of the instant repercussions of it. It's like a dog who barks with one of these shot collars. Maybe we should introduce something like that and take it to Dragon's Den. Hello? Hello? Fucking idiot. Supermarkets are designed to take your money with deals and food placements, but then so would you if you're trying to make as much money as possible. We live in a world where money equals power, and people shout and moan about poor food choices. Fuck off! We live in a world where money equals power. People shout and moan about poor food choices and this is making us fat. But in the same situation and a bid to make as much money as possible, you'd likely do exactly the fucking same to give you a big juicy bonus. Doesn't mean it's right, I'm just being honest. It also doesn't mean it's actually impossible to avoid these foods. All you have to do is walk right past it when you're shopping. You make the transaction for all the food that you eat. Ricky Gervais made a joke that supermarkets should have like shutters in the aisles. If you can't fit down certain aisles, like the sweetie aisle or the crisps or the donuts or the ice cream aisle, you can't buy anything from it until you fit through it. You could be onto something. Fourth point, I genuinely think pre-packaged stuff gets a bad rap. Lol. I'm certain a lot of these foods have these added ingredients to preserve it a bit so it can sit on a shelf, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. Not everyone can buy the freshest of ingredients and they don't want to be a miserable fucker with the asparagus wrapped spinach with avocado filling. Some people are on the go and need quick on the go lunches and actually want to enjoy the crunch of a crisp or the sweetness of chocolate. What I would say about pre-packaged meals is they never taste as good as freshly made meals. And that's something which I think a lot of people don't understand because they never do make their own food. You have maniacs in the shopping centre shout, stop buying this shit, like protein yogurts. And then this other maniac making wrap recipes which are basically just omelettes. Imagine travelling with these kinds of foods or cooking it for your kid. Just buy a fucking wrap, mate. Most people don't want mince for their breakfast or 10 boiled eggs, lads. We don't want to all be as depressed as you and smell like a brisket every day. These guys are definitely single, because there's not a chance they would have kids who would be happy to wake up and have 20% beef mince for their breakfast with their burger juice. And the pre-packaged protein yogurts and the protein bars aren't the best source for a breakfast, but it's a lot better than some. I've left my biggest point to last as well, which is the majority of people do not watch the TV now, unless it's a big massive event of some sort, or you're watching the EastEnders omnibus. I really think what your kid watches, I bet it's along the lines of BBC iPlayer or Netflix or Disney Plus or Amazon Prime, all which probably advertise their own shows. And I bet that's on their tablet. And I don't think a lot of these apps even advertise food. So banning junk food on public TV is a bit like dressing up a dead body and doing its makeup. What are you actually contributing here? TV is a little bit like radio now. Nobody's really listening to that actively now, unless they're tuning into their favourite show. It's just on in the background. Kids don't come home anymore and watch E4 to watch Friends and watch the same Friends episodes an hour later on E4+1. What I do find hilarious is that junk food is now the same class as porn and can't be shown after the watershed at 9 PM. You're going to have folk pumping each other, covered in crisps at the same time. A woman getting pumped and then deep throating a Pringles tube at the same time. I'll see if my wife's into that. It'll be long until a film will be rated 18 because there's a person eating an ice cream on it. What's funny as well is basically now the word fuck, arse, shit, bellend and ice cream are the same thing on TV, which is ironic because these words are subjective as well. Because you can't tell someone to fuck off, or you can't want to fuck someone, or you can't say you're fucking beauty for happiness and elation, which is quite funny. So what would I do to address this? I can't say for certain because I'm not that intelligent. Education is probably the right route, but then that contradicts what I've said in the past about not mentioning anything about calories, etc. to kids at young ages. It's not really something they should really need to learn about if they've been brought up with a decent diet, just like kids were in the past. It maybe should fall on the adults to educate the kids, but then adults are learning absolute dog shit online as well. And it's all fine and well targeting the kids, but I don't really understand why parents are being targeted to improve the education they're passing on. Parents are the most influential person a kid has, so why not focus on them? I've heard people online say, well, just stop selling junk food. Let's assume that means stop selling ice cream, pizza, burgers, pastas, chocolate and crisps, all these sort of things. Apparently the fast food industry was worth £20 billion in 2022. Do you think the government will stop £20 million coming out of their pockets? I don't think so. Also, some of the foods mentioned earlier, it can be made by only a couple of ingredients. If you take traditional junk food, meaning it tends to be dense in calories and full of ingredients we can't pronounce. What about when you go to restaurants that make pizza only using flour and oil, which is 2 ingredients? Crisps can be made just by slicing potatoes, a bit of oil and putting them in oil to fry it. And you also now get crisps with even less oil and put them in the oven, called pop chips. So see how these people are idiots? And it's just not that simple. So with this new rule, all this ultimately is people in an office not really understanding the issues surrounding food and its availability. We've tried before and it's not really worked with the labels. I also don't think the sugar tax did much. Even though anyone who drinks caloric drinks are numpties anyway, just pick up the 0 calorie one right next to the caloric one. It's like these people who live in cities telling farmers how to live. They have zero understanding what it's like to be one. Ironically, there's a lot of fat, useless fuckers in politics who don't know what they're doing and don't know how to address an issue that they likely have themselves. So they come up with rules like this, which is like throwing shit at a wall and hopefully it sticks. Taking advice from people like this is like going to an overweight cardiologist and them saying, you know, you're probably better losing weight, as he sweats and heavy breathes all over you and he pulls out his microwave meal. Thanks for the advice, mate. Maybe you should fucking listen to yourself. Also, in the past I made a video about Professor Mark Cobb and he lost 12 kilos of eating only a convenience store diet, i.e. junk food, that his students chose for him. Proving again, it's not actually the food we eat, it's the quantities that we eat it in. Again, this isn't me advocating you eat a diet full of junk food. I know what you fuckers on YouTube are like, taking bite-sized information and running with it. There will never be a time where people shouldn't eat a diet that consists mostly of single ingredient foods, but we now live in an obesogenic environment. But that doesn't mean we should become like that. It's just the most difficult time period to do it with the convenience, abundance and cheapness of food right now. It is difficult, but it's not impossible. I'm obviously not in support of a diet full of junk food, by the way. It has its issues, but so does too much healthy foods. Just like eating too much junk food, you can eat too much healthy food and run into issues like too much fibre, too much vitamins. You know, the devil is in the dose. You can drink too much water, for fuck's sake. And I've done that before, it is not fun. So where's the middle ground? Well, that's up for you to figure out for yourself. And if you do need support with it, get your lazy ass a coach to help you out. Junk food has its place, but people aren't using it in the right place in their lives. What I would maybe do is not take your nutrition advice from people who don't fully understand it. That goes along with Netflix documentaries and celebrities. It wasn't too long ago Oprah Winfrey, who is one of the biggest talk show hosts in the world, was on the board of directors of Weight Watchers, but she was actually losing weight by using drugs. I'm not saying that this new rule is a useless endeavour, and I hadn't realised that online ads were actually being removed as well, but energy probably could and should be aimed elsewhere. Marketers are going to find a way around these. I just don't think people are getting their food urges from the TV basically. It's coming from the big massive M on the motorway or the big brightly coloured food items in the supermarket. Anyway, that's us done. See you in the next video.